like Louise says, like you almost have to sort of split yourself into doing the work and doing the work creatively and artistically, and then the other part of it is running the administration part of it and looking for money and all that type of thing, and it's a never-ending thing. So the frustration is that you want to be able to do it all of the time, so you can like super submerge yourself in it. But the reality is that the administration of the thing has over 13 years become a big bulk part of what Louise certainly does with Darkroom.
And but at the same time, I can imagine that, and I know this from my own career, that if you've got all of your administration, you know, if you're handling all of your administration, it's easier to apply for grants, and it puts you in the position to be able to apply for National Arts Act or various other forms of, you know, commercial funding, or corporate funding is the word I'm actually after. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that was a learning curve at the beginning to go through that. Of course, with nonprofit, there's also specific things that have to be done in a specific way. But definitely, the more you have those things in place, the easier it is to just be able to submit to a wider pool of opportunities, because you've got the backup to be able to show those potential buyers what you can offer them. So it really does make a big difference in strengthening your application at the end of the day.
How do you guys carve out time for the creative process? So, you know, I can imagine that, especially if you've got dancers and funding applications and all of that stuff, like you were sharing, it's like a never-ending administrative cycle. How do you carve out studio time?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of gotten to a point now where we are able to set aside a specific block of time when we have the go-ahead for a project. We kind of able to drop everything else a little bit and have our support staff and our teams that we work with let it go, let it run in the background, so that I can, for instance, be in the studio for 6 weeks working on getting something ready, which is great. But then you kind of would hope for that to be longer periods of time, or not so interrupted. I think in a way it's not ideal, because you're going from these extremes. You're going from like a month or two of just admin, and then you're going into a month or two of studio work. So it balances out, but it is an interesting sort of a workflow.
Yeah, I mean, like even though there's, like we were saying, there's loads of admin to happen, you're always sort of creatively thinking about ideas and sort of plans that's always bubbling at the back somewhere. So when we are fortunate enough to receive funding for a project, our studio time then becomes really valuable, right? So you then try and maximize all those hours. And the thing that I think that really helped us, and that we learned over these, because you have to learn it yourself. Lois and I used to work out of our apartment, and that was a heavy thing, because you kind of never switch off. So you're always working. The house becomes an extension of the company or the project that you're working on. And since we've been able to have an actual studio space where we come to work, we come to this place, we work, and then when work's done, we go home. And at home, sometimes there's a little bit of a sort of a creative conversation that happens, but no actual work. So separating like the two spaces that the work happens from was really beneficial in how we spend our time.
And also kind of like a rite of passage, right? Because you know, you came together, you share this passion, you connect in this medium, you know, middle ground, which we'll talk to now, and then
Yeah.
you know, you then it starts in like a kitchen or a bedsit or something, and then it's kind of grown now, and then it can be bumped out of the house. It's like, now you go find your own place.
Live alone, live alone.
I'm currently living in my studio, and I don't stop working. It's you know, it's I wake, I'm loving it for the time being. I'm loving the full immersion. When I had a separate studio on Bree Street and I lived in Tambourshkloof, I was like, I was finding that I was starting to become creative in the morning, and then I would get into this creative flow. And even the walk from, I mean, it's a small walk to my studio, was breaking that flow. And I love working from home at the moment, but it would be nice to have also, just separate rooms even, because at the moment I'm like in my studio.
Okay, that gets intense.
It does.
So you guys have are an interesting collaborative duo. I mean, you know, you are dance, choreography, and lens-based media. And so, you know, there's this beautiful thing that happens where, you know, it's the performer and the person looking at the performance, the kind of performer-director inversion that happens. Can you guys speak to some of your work? I mean, you shared briefly in the beginning, Louise, about how you make films, you make dance films, or what did you call them, lens-based work? Performances.
Yeah, so that has always been a really like a strong interest of mine. I think even as a student, I was really exploring different ways of presenting dance so that it's not only catering to an audience that enjoys going into a theater to sit and watch something happening, because I feel like that audience is quite specific. It's a specific audience, and I feel like movement could speak to so many others who are maybe not venturing into that space for whatever reason. So that is really the starting point for these kind of explorations. And then through my experimentations with screen dance and the medium of film, I think it has shown that it is such a like a relevant medium, I guess, in a sense, because we so on our screens and screens are everywhere, and it has appeal to look at a screen. So so it's really been quite an enjoyable journey to work through this medium over many years now. And through working with Oscar, we've, I think, also found like just really finding different, very vastly different projects to try and work together on. Always trying to challenge ourselves in a sense, trying to challenge maybe the viewer in some way, to challenge the dancers as well, because it's a different work process, of course, as performers, to create that film. So it's a really, really interesting medium. I think there's still a lot to discover in it. And yes, it's definitely had value for the company, in the sense that these works have really shown globally to audiences all over, that we could not physically have traveled to with the company to go and present the work. So in that sense, it's really a good way of having broader platforms and audiences for the work as well.
So I think, so from the like inception of the company, the name speaks to this inept sort of idea that we were gonna collaborate as far as we could, right? Darkroom, obviously the lens stuff and the developing stuff and the photo stuff and the contemporary for the stuff that like Louise does. Many years ago when we first met, and I went to go and watch a live performance, and Louise had work up there, and there was a whole bunch of other sort of dance companies. It was like a big dance festival, and all these people came up onto stage, and they done their 5, 6, 7, 8, and it was all very beautiful. And then when it was time for Louise's live show to happen, she showed a film, and a film had music, but I think it was Radiohead, and like so number one, she was showing a film at a physical dance festival, so that was already like, oh my god, she's such a. And then number two, the film was inverted, so it was shown upside down, so it really was disruptive then, and that was a big attraction to me, that that this lens-based stuff could be so disruptive in that space. And I think by being disruptive, it pulled people in, and certainly for me, I went, well, how like that's beautiful. Like how can we do this? And so all these years later, I always say I feel quite lucky to be able to take on the concepts that Louise comes up with in terms of the choreography and the direction of it, and to add some of my knowledge to, and at the end of it, be able to present something that we're both very proud of, and obviously to make something that wasn't there before. And being a film, you have this extra luxury of being able to revisit it, and that's really special for me in any case.
That's so cool. And yeah, screen dance is the word that you used. I love that phrase, screen dance. And I love this idea of like disruptive screen dance. And and also, like it's 2023 now, and it's, post everybody channeling all their things through the internet. And I just want to like, really put it into context that this was 13 years ago.
Exactly.
Longer than 13 years ago, when you guys were starting to channel movement and experimental art and installation art and movement and choreography through lens-based media. And so, I mean, I've seen a couple of your shows, and they really are, shifting.